So this week for the PTO, we have the 7th grade conversations. That's coming up. It's actually rescheduled from December. So that's going to be on Friday. There's an email coming out today that will give you the Zoom information. It's Friday morning at 9:30. And then on Thursday morning, we have the 8th grade conversations that's going to talk all about transitioning into 9th grade. And that's also at 9:30, and information, Zoom details are coming out on that today as well. And then several people have asked about the picture day makeup. That's going to happen this week, or this month, on Wednesday the 27th. And that will be after school from 4 to 8 p.m. And there's information coming out on that today as well, how to sign up and all those sorts of details. So that's about it, I think, for a PTO update, and I'll hand it over to Jeff.
Well, thank you very much. Happy New Year to everyone. Hope everybody celebrated well and well rested. Yeah, it is an exciting week, and it's a big week for us as a building. Whether it's the PTO conversations, we have our our orientation, kind of like talking about the next school year event this Thursday night. So there's a lot of information, and it's kind of crazy. And I see Marjorie on the call. It's like, you basically like begin one school year and start already talking about the next school year, whether it's budget or whether it's, the transition of students from one year to the next. So it's like you're always living in two different school years. So, that's an exciting piece. I think that we have good information coming out. But again, it's new information again this year. We talk about the transition process, the recommendation process, the decision for students to be in an advanced track or not having as much information from students, potentially never having students in a classroom this year. Everything feels new again this year. So that's the hardest thing. But some updates that we have. Hopefully you saw the student council elections. I'm very excited about that. I actually met with the student council representatives before we started our break. And I actually said to the students, they were probably the last students concerned with something school related, because they met with me, I think at 2:30 the Wednesday before break. So I think that it shows their commitment and their excitement about some good fundraising activities, some good community building activities, even in a pandemic situation. So we've got some really excited students, and whether your children, as I look through the list, are an elected representative or a member of our student council, hopefully they will still continue to stay involved in kind of getting our community together. Something that we are working on behind the scenes, and I'm happy to open it up for questions, is we're working on I may have shared before, it's not a very inventive title, but we're calling it the JJMS Video Library. We're trying to create a list of videos for both students and for parents. So examples of, and I've just got a thing over here on my wall, examples for students would be the weekly updates that our JJMS stream is putting together. So we've got students that are doing updates from around the school, students that are trying to start some like sports highlights, that kind of thing, which is pretty cool. And then tech help for students. So how to use a MacBook. I mean, our 8th graders every year are going to be using MacBooks, and there are just some fine-tuned types of things that, like, after you use it for a month or two, you get to know. But just we're going to put some videos up there, and we hope that this will be a living document that can be expanded over time. And then there's more about organization for students that are at home or in school, just little videos that we can suggest that students watch, or parents can suggest that students watch. Just again, like one voice coming from the school. It says my internet connection's unstable, so I'm gonna do my best to keep talking, and you tell me if I need to repeat anything. The other part that we're excited about is our school psychologists, Dr. Freed and Dr. Lee, have started to put together some videos with the intended audience of parents. Adolescence, that we probably all would agree that it's not necessarily a time in our life that we would go back to, but we probably all remember it being a tough time of our life where we learned a lot. You start to break away from your parents a little bit, you start to explore the world a little bit, you start to have some differing opinions, et cetera, et cetera. And some of that is hard for families to understand. Um, and so there's that, there's the organization piece, there's tech help for parents. We're trying to put everything into categories. So we're hoping to go live with this over the course of the next couple of months. So we're working with Lenore Person up at the district office. She's the district's PR person. And then Laura is our person here. And we're just trying to build something through our district video server called Ensemble, just so that everything doesn't have to go through YouTube, because it was a conscious decision for us not to go with the YouTube route as much as possible, because we know once kids are on YouTube, if we're directing them there, it's very easy to fall down the YouTube rabbit hole or wormhole, however you want to look at that. So we're hoping to build something that can just live on a website or like a page off of our website, so that families and students can have a place to go for more information. One of the more exciting things, I think at least, is given kind of the new expectations of adolescence, and you can spell that word however you want in this conversation. Kind of behavior management is more, I think, important than probably what we grew up with, which I don't know if you were like me, was more like threatening. It was like, do this or, that works for some students, but it doesn't work for other students. So there's a whole kind of like new, not new, but kind of behavior management is a huge piece of kind of like what we do as a school. And so we're trying to put some videos out there for parents as well, how to put together just a quick behavior plan for children at home. Like, here's what you do, or here's the way to word something, kind of, word an ultimatum, if you will, because you still are the parents, but there's language that students are a little more used to that's coming from school, et cetera. And so we just want to have that there for parents as well, so that they're aware of that. So as we populate that, we will share it with our entire parent community. But we did want to give you the heads up on something that we're working on here behind the scenes. So I've got something else to talk about if you would like, but I really like to provide time to answer questions that people have during this time, just because there are so many transitions, et cetera, coming up. So feel free to, I don't know how you want to do this, Taryn, if you just want people to raise their hands or just kind of unmute yourself and ask. You can type it into the chat, but I think it's usually hard for me to, if somebody wants to monitor the chat and then just ask the questions, we can do it that way.
I think it's easier to just unmute and talk.
Right.
You don't have to put your video on, but you could just unmute if anyone has questions.
All right, thank you so much. No, I'm just kidding.
I can start. Can I start?
Yeah, go ahead, Antoinette.
So before Thanksgiving, things were going well, but then there was some quarantining periods. And basically since Thanksgiving, it's been very difficult to get my son to go to school because there's very few students and very few teachers at school. So his friends are not there and they kind of feed on each other, and I'm not going, are you going? I'm not going. So basically, I was so excited about the first day of school this year because I figured we'll start fresh and everybody will show up. But from what I understand, there are about, I don't know, 2 to 3 to 5 kids max in a class. And some of the teachers were also not there yesterday. So I just was wondering, how we're going to go forward, and any help in motivating and encouraging our kids to go back to school, because my son did really want to go back to school in person, and now it's just he's kind of losing that momentum.
Yeah, I think it's something that I'm living at home as well, Antoinette. My son is in high school over in Ridgefield, and they actually have a 4-day, like a longer period. They're doing 4 periods on one day and 4 periods on the next. And he's got like an easy day and a hard day. And he was saying, we were having the same conversation last night, that we want you to go back to school. But he's like, why would I wake up early? Why would I do these things if I have a study hall first period? And you know what I mean? So like I think it is a negotiation. I will tell you, there were more students in school yesterday than there were probably any of the days in December. There was a tremendous amount of variability. Some classes had 3 students in them and some had 9. We did have some people that had some unexpected travel, so they did have to quarantine when they got back over break. We did, again, everybody followed the rules, but, if a sick parent or something like that, some people did have to travel. So I think most of our teachers are out today. We have a couple of, routine kind of like personal day types of things today. But most of our teachers are here. But again, I think you'll see a tremendous amount of variability. My thought, at least coming into January, was that we would likely see a lot more students coming in. There are not any major holidays coming up. There might be a 3-day weekend of skiing coming up for some families or something like that you might not want to miss. But, it's a long haul between now and March when we can really get outdoors a little bit more, et cetera. So our hope is that students are going to be here. It is definitely better for, I think, at least for students to be here in person whenever they can be here. We've actually added a tremendous number. I think we have now at least invited all students with special needs in any way back to our building. Some families have decided not to. Some have made a commitment to staying home for the year or until there's vaccinations, et cetera, et cetera. But, our students that are resource room students, co-taught students, our special class students, all students that have had a defined disability and have an IEP have been invited back to the building at this time. So it is our feeling that we want students here. Again, there are just certain nuances that you can't pick up on through video. You can't necessarily see a student's body language, or a student can opt out of, turning their the student can turn their camera off when they're at home, but you can't do that in school. So, we want our students here as much as possible. And I would agree with, some of the studies that are coming out. There is very little suggestion that there is a transmission happening within a school building. We can say that everybody must wear a mask here. It's a term of employment for our entire district. And then, we are reinforcing that for our students as well. Again, I think if you gave any of us the option to wear a mask over our face during adolescence, when we have braces and pimples and all that kind of stuff, I think a lot of us would have taken that option. So I think students are wearing their masks a lot here. And, again, I don't think that we have any evidence yet of transmission in the building. Not to say that can't change. I know that there's a lot of, news coming out about a different strand and potentially more contagious, but, we haven't seen that yet. So I would love students to be here. So maybe it's a phone call between parents just to say, like, listen, let's go, like, let's send them starting next Monday. There are no more excuses, or whatever it's going to be.
It'll also be helpful for the teachers
Yeah.
to encourage them, like, see you tomorrow, you're going to be here tomorrow, especially the teachers that are there in person. And it does help for the teachers to be in person. But if this trend continues of 3 to 5 students and maybe 9, can't we just have 4 days of in-person and combine the cohorts? I mean, have you guys looked at the numbers?
Yeah, we have looked at the numbers. The hard part is that there's a tremendous amount of variability within that, right? So every classroom has a certain capacity given the spacing requirements for our classes. We have actually gone back through a couple of times and done our best to maximize our capacity. So, we started the year with kind of like a 6-foot swath at the front of the classroom for teachers. Most teachers, because they are teaching, to students online and at home, are kind of set at their desks or up at the front of their classroom. So in some classrooms, we've been able to add another desk or something like that. The hard part is that we have to reserve a spot for anyone who has not opted out. So like a family who's just saying, I'm keeping my kids home, but are not opting out, we have to continue to keep that space for the children. So like there's just a tremendous amount of variability there. And my fear is as soon as we say 4, come in for 4 days, then we're flooded with kids that we don't know what to do with. And we can't really plan for that kind of on the fly because we don't have enough staff to staff like a large study hall area or something like that. We have started to talk though about, when we do have more students coming back. So again, we've invited our co-taught students back, our resource room students back. That has put some of our classrooms over maximum. So, but we haven't reached that with students in the building yet, but we are ready for that piece. So the answer is like, we're thinking about it and we're doing whatever we can, while also being cautious that at any time, all students can show up. And there's a tremendous amount of like, what are we going to do? Because there are no seats for you in this classroom. So what we've talked about is like some sort of holding tank, but we really don't have the staff because we're using existing staff to cover other classes of teachers that are on quarantine, et cetera. So
Thank you.
you got it. Lisa, I see you've got your hand up.
There we go. Okay.
Yep.
I actually had a couple questions. So Happy New Year. And I am on the fence as well. I mean, Ryan is one of the kids in cohort A that is supposed to be there in person. And I was all on board for that until he got contact traced twice.
Mm-hmm.
And now my kids want to go to school. They want to be in the building. I'm just panicked because then that wipes out any extracurricular activities they can possibly do. And they're shut down again.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's I think a lot of what the parents in our group are going through is we've been contact traced. And so we don't want to be shutting the kids down again. With that being said, he's driving me insane being home. He walks around all day and I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, well, I have a study hall, then I have lunch. And then, so, I mean, there's a lot of downtime in between classes. And my biggest concern though was, I digressed. I left a message before the holidays. He's in earth science and at least 1 to 2 times per week, his teacher was not there. And I was wondering if, I'm assuming you don't have subs in the building and it's hard to get a sub in at last minute. In this Regents type class, are you able to at least get a lesson up online or at least have the other teacher have the kids join their class to hear the lesson taught? It's not more work for that other teacher. It's at least the kids are listening to a lesson as opposed to now having a free period. And that happened for like, I'd say 2 or 3 weeks, that there were 2 days a week that his teacher wasn't there. And I don't know if he was ill or what the situation was. The kids, obviously weren't told, but I mean, if these kids are going to be taking a Regents in that class, that's a huge concern for me because they missed a lot of lesson time.
Yeah, so I mean, there are certain parts of that I can answer and certain that I can't.
Mm-hmm.
For personnel related matters, like that, I don't want to make a general statement because again, who you're talking about, and
Right.
you use a couple of pronouns that probably most other people would know who you're talking about as well. So I will say that generally, it is an expectation, whether people are in or out of the building, that there are lessons provided for students, whether it is a reading or something like that. That is done. So that's an expectation that we have for teachers when they are absent, unless it's like an absolutely unexpected absence. And even still, we do expect that our teachers have emergency lesson plans, that type of thing for people. There's an example today for one of our Spanish teachers that there was nothing we could do. It was totally unexpected.
Right.
But it is an expectation that we have. And I think, I can't really say much more than that. So, the hard part, I think at least, is that we are asking our teachers to provide some downtime away from screens for students as well. I do get the concern having to do with our Regents class. I will let you know that the state did cancel the January Regents. So for those classes that are January Regents tested, that was canceled. I can't imagine that we'll be doing the Regents in June, but you never know with the state. So we have to continue to move forward like we will be until we hear otherwise. So Again, it would be our expectation, and we've said that clearly as a school a number of times. So if there are any people who, you know, have concerns about a teacher, I am definitely the person to contact, and we can have that conversation outside of a whole group like this.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, you got it.
Any other questions out there?
Can I ask a really small logistic question? It's kind of along the same lines, but it's trivial by comparison to what we're talking about. But because there are so few students in the building and because it's getting really cold outside, I just wondered if there's any way to rethink the decision around lockers so the kids have a place to put a winter coat and we can convince our kids to wear a winter coat. Fighting an uphill battle because it's too much to carry around, given that I'm carrying everything else around all day. And
Yeah.
there are just some times in the day because the bus arrives early and the kids are waiting outside the building where I just think it's going to get worse, not better. So I don't know what a creative solution might look like, but just wanted to ask if, you know, we have such low density in the buildings, whether there might be some place where kids could safely put their coats, if not a locker.
Yeah, I honestly, I wish there was. I mean, that's definitely something we can explore. We have lined our hallways with our social distancing dots. So just inside that main entrance where students stand mostly for any super cold days or really inclement, but you know, that may be something that we could talk to the people that are in charge of that area in the morning and just have them come in either way, you know, so that we can prevent maybe, you know, try to keep to a sweatshirt or something like that. It still means you have to stand at a bus stop potentially for some students, or there is quite a walk if you're dropping your kids off, but at least it's a, you know, a minimal amount of time outside. So I will look into that.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Hi, I have a question. My son is on an IEP, and you just discussed before about inviting all students back with an IEP. Are you referring to 4 days a week? I did not receive an invitation, and he's in resource room, so I was just wondering.
Yeah, you should either have received it or will be receiving it. I know we first invited our co-taught students back. So we wanted to make sure that we closed that first and made sure that we had definite answers from that group. And our next group was our resource students. So just check your email you'd probably be receiving that from Catherine McNulty. But again, I'll just double check back with her, but that is definitely our next step in the process.
Okay, so for 4 days a week, you mean?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, that's good to know. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Good morning. Happy New Year, everybody. I have a quick question about absences on the report card that came out right before the holiday. They seemed very inconsistent. Like I would get, one class would have 3 absences and one class would have none. I know at least one of my 2 was never absent. And I asked them to go back to the teachers to kind of clarify. It was hard because on the report card, it doesn't list the dates that they were absent. So I couldn't go back to kind of check to see if it was an actual absence. One of my students said that they asked their teacher about it, and it was a day when they were supposed to be in school, but they were learning remotely that day by choice. And they said their teacher just marked them absent because they weren't in school. Although they participated online. So I'm just not sure how concerned I need to be about the absences on the report card, whether I should really follow up and take care of that. The tardies, I'm sure, are because they weren't on time for their Zoom, but the absences, I was just a little concerned because there were way more absences than what I believe should be on there.
Yeah, I think, first of all, it's nothing to be concerned about. You probably all know that we changed our practice at the beginning of December so that things were automatically generated. I think it's an interesting concern coming from teachers this year. They basically, one teacher said, I think aptly the other day, I feel like all I do this year is take attendance and call on kids online who don't respond to me. There is a tremendous amount of, I think, growth that we have done over the course of the year into what an absence looks like, what a virtually present looks like. And we were kind of, creating that while the plane was in the air. So nothing to be concerned about, especially if it's before that December 1st. I think we have a better system after December 1st that you're notified within about 48 hours of any absence or cut or something like that. But to your point, Kristen, I don't think that we had anything probably in place for September with present, virtually present, what a cut would look like for a student who logs in early and then disappears late. So those are things that we're trying to refine over the course of the year. But again, nothing to be worried about. We don't do perfect attendance awards here or anything. So I think we're okay. And especially if the grades are good and all the work is handed in, if you see absences connected with a student not doing work, there's definitely more cause for concern there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Related to that, I just wanted to ask about Wednesdays. Because for Wednesdays, my son has checked in before 9, right? And then gone back to sleep. Or he has slept in extra 5 or 10 minutes and then was marked absent. Is there any other creative ways to take attendance for Wednesdays? I can't think of any suggestions, but I think it's the 9 a.m. sort of taking attendance thing is a little arbitrary.
Okay. So we didn't do 8, so the kids could sleep in a little bit.
But if somebody's late, like, let's say they check in at 9:15, like once, he's done it once or twice. And once it was a system error. So we had to keep track of that and make sure we go back and talk to, I think, Ms. Brooks. But so is there any other, what about the advisor, having the advisor meet up with them for 5 minutes on a Wednesday? I don't know. I'm just thinking creatively, what can we do to be sure they are engaged during the day, not just check in 8:45 and then check out, or account for the fact that they may be 15 minutes late?
Yeah, so we have to set it at some point, right? So we feel like 9 o'clock is something that we've done for a while, so we will likely stick with that. But I think that you will see a change upcoming for Wednesdays. I know the district did send out a survey over the course of the past month, and we know that early on in the year, our superintendent, assistant superintendent, et cetera, said that there will be an evolution of Wednesdays. So I don't want to get into all the details because I don't know exactly how that's going to be messaged to our parents. So I don't want to, kind of rip the thing off. But we are definitely starting to plan for the evolution of Wednesdays, which will include more student contact time. I saw Anna, and then we'll go to, I'm going to say Isaac, just because it says Isaac. All right, go ahead, Anna, go ahead.
Here, everyone. Just going. I have a 6th grader. He's my youngest one, and just make this story very short. I looked at the interim report last October, and I was quite alarmed about the comments about missing work and low engagement. And also, I started to look what's going on the Schoology. And then English is my 3rd language, so I'm sorry for some mistakes I can make right now. But then shortly after that, Jeremy got his left foot broken, and then he went fully remote with his learning. And then I started to participate, not participate, but I started to sit with him through each class every day, like for the last 2 months. I literally put my life on hold to make sure what are we dealing with on both sides before I, make alarm at school, what's going on. So it took me like 2 weeks to get through Schoology, to learn to navigate through that, to go onto grades folder and interpret what's put on there for the kids. And I just want to share some observation about this this whole process for me, because I have this impression that with the Schoology, is a lot required from the very young children, actually, to be very self-controlling, to be very independent in their work, to be to almost work like a company, to go and look for their homework, for their assignments, for their classwork, what has been done, what needs to be done, and to go deeper, to navigate through all these classes. I saw his progress when sitting with him all day long, because I was able to hear and listen what the teacher has to say and what instructions the kids are getting during the classes. I also saw how the kids behave and what the teacher have to deal with studying every Zoom. There is a lot of issues going on, and I'm sure the school is also working on that. But if you say about attendance, and this is not a concern, and if I see on the report card like 20 something absences, it is my concern, because I don't see anything else beside of the kids, you know, sitting and be glued to the screen the whole day long and being absent for the classes, right? So I spent like a whole week before the Christmas to clarify what's going on, how much of the error is in the system, because I cannot imagine that when I'm with the kid for 2 months, every lesson, every Zoom class, and he's marked absent, then what is going on, right? And especially when you announce the change in the attendance marking starting November 30th. This is November 30th, December 1st and 2nd. This is where I saw most of the errors, and also it was the only time I got any kind of notification by email that the Jeremy was missing. So what do they have to do when they sit at home, right? They have to just log into Classroom. And if they don't do it, then a parent have to be notified like immediately, because they are sitting at home. There is nothing else to do for them. And I set some kind of rules for him, and he's better right now, and he's progressing. And I also been in touch with the teachers. I also wanted to give you an observation about the homework and all the work they have to do at home if they don't finish it at school. I barely saw something like a feedback about the homework. Usually, and also nothing like control over the homework that has been done. They have to go by themselves into the system and check every folder, every lesson, every week, what is missing. When they were at school last year before pandemic, they were controlled every morning. Have you done your homework? Show me your homework. Right now, there is nothing like, I barely hear teachers saying, show me your homework, right? They have to, there is nothing like something like they need to be called on the homework, because then you see like after 2 weeks that there is some missing stuff. And even if I'm a tech savvy person, I still saw myself, you know, not noticing that there is really something missing. And there is no comment from the teacher about what needs to be done. So I can't really help him. But to ask, well, you know, the teacher by the email. So this is another work for me to do to make sure that things are working. And there is also no access actually, because on the parent account, you can't do anything with the 6th grader. You have to go on his Schoology account and let explain to you what is going on, what you have to do, what has been done in the classroom. So there is really no access to previously done work. So you cannot, even if you see a grade like 4 out of 10, then as a parent, you want to know what's going on, why there is 4 out of 10. So you cannot access it, and there is no feedback from the teacher like you would see it on the paper when the kid could bring it back from the school. And this is something, I did this work at home, right? But if you cannot access what the kids are doing, and then how can you improve? How can you learn from mistakes? This is something I miss. And I've been missing through this period right now. And also, just last thing about the PE lessons. It's really hard, for the kids to be so independent. I'm not sure because, the PE lessons, the teachers just give some kind of instructions, post some kind of, videos on the Schoology. And after 10 minutes, the kids are by themselves. So they have to be really like, they have to go to the video. There is nothing like, okay, let's do together some jumping jacks or some basic stuff that really engage the kids. Also, there is, I barely saw kids really laughing. Everything is so serious, every Zoom class is like, teacher is talking and then the kids have to listen, and then they have to listen through so many instructions. Then I had to go my own notebook, to write it down for the 6th grader, to make sure that he really understands, not from the language point of view, but from the meaning, how many steps they have to do to make sure that they will be able to do the whole work during the class. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. That was a lot. So I don't know if I can respond to everything, but
No.
I think that there are a couple of things though that I think were in there that hopefully I can give some information that can be helpful. There are email parent notifications that you can set up through Schoology. So through your parent site, we sent it out probably about a month ago. And I think it's on our website. I don't know exactly where, so I apologize. But you can set up for email notifications. It depends on your level. Okay, so you can do it weekly, daily, etc. So you know if homework is handed in. That's one thing. As far as the PE lessons, it's so complicated. I wish there were a better answer for that type of thing. I've been in a class, I've observed classes where the group starts together and then, the kids go outside and it's hard for us to, create a remote environment there, to keep kids active while they're in school and also keep kids active with the same teacher while they're at home, just because we don't have the Wi-Fi up on the field or et cetera. So that's a real struggle for me. So again, that's something I can talk to the district PE coordinator about, or athletics director about, and just see maybe what are people doing in other buildings to be there. And then just in terms of your attendance piece, hopefully it sounds like, I think in what you were saying, it sounds like it's resolved now that we're getting some quicker notification, but there may have been absences earlier in the year. And again, that's why I think we were noticing that as a school. I will tell you that I have a 6th grader at home, and we've noticed in our 6th graders here, for our 6th graders not to finish up their elementary kind of career, 5+ years at an elementary school, and not being able to ramp that up last year, starting by kids that did learn like kind of bad habits last year. It has really been a struggle for our 6th graders this year. So I will share with you that I don't think you're alone, kind of like in your frustration and what you were expressing in terms of kind of like the study habits thing. I share with everyone that, my daughter, she kind of looks at assignments as suggestions. And, when she doesn't want to do something, we say like, why didn't you do that? And she goes, I don't know. And like, that's just her answer. And it kind of, I think, was accepted last year in some respect that, students were going through something. So I think kids learned, and now we have to help them unlearn as best as we can in a hybrid environment. Like you said, your son's fully at home right now. That's really, really complicated. We're hoping with some of the changes that you might see on Wednesdays for a little more time. I would say to everyone, we do have extra help that occurs on Wednesdays. So if you notice that your child is struggling in any way, that extra help does exist for everyone right now in Wednesdays after school. And maybe that's just a requirement that you make as a family. The child has to go to extra help for whatever classes they're struggling with. And in 6th grade, it's the same teacher for 2 subjects. So I know that didn't resolve everything, and I apologize, but Melissa?
Hi, Happy New Year. I can totally piggyback off of what Anna is saying. I've been full remote since the beginning of the year. We've had a lot of issues with the absences and things. And even with the update to the system in December, I now keep a running list, and it's basically my full-time job to sit with both my children all day long, follow them through each class. I keep a list of when they're kicked out of Zoom, how they're trying to get back into Zoom, sort of notes on the conversations that they're having with their teacher, so I can like discuss with their teacher that no, that date they actually were in class. And it is very time consuming, and something, I don't know what the system issue is or what it's giving as notification when kids are missing or get kicked out. But I do feel like there's a certain amount of, expecting a good intention from the children versus like them trying to skip out on class. I do feel like there's a kind of like the atmosphere towards the children, or the attitude towards the children is like that they're trying to not be there when they actually are. I mean, at least my child is really putting in an effort to be in class. So when you do get a notification that's like, oh, you weren't there, when like I said, I've been sitting there all day with them. I know they're there. I know they weren't missing class. And to have that conversation with a 6th grader can be very difficult. And it, brings them down after a while when they're putting in so much effort and then getting these sort of negative reports over and over again. So that's one thing. Also, the PE lessons, I agree. Like, I just think I'd rather him join an art class or something else where he can actually be doing something during that time than be given a video and then sent off to do whatever. And, it's such a waste of a period. I don't feel like any gym is happening or PE is happening during that time period. But the point of my, the reason I wanted to speak was I wanted to know what, since you are planning for the following school year, are there plans for like mandatory vaccinations for the teachers? Also, will there still be a mandatory mask wearing situation, even with the vaccinations, knowing that that is the recommendation at this point? And then will there also still be a full remote option, because there are still people with underlying issues, and my child can't be vaccinated yet because they haven't even done testing on children under 16.
Right.
So I'm just trying to like, and who do I contact to try to, if that's not a plan going forward, like who do I contact to create some form of resource for him for the following year, for next year, so that I'm not kind of like scrambling right before the school year starts?
Yeah, so as of right now, we're making plans in terms of like scheduling and that kind of thing for next year. I think that there are, I don't know what the expectation is going to be. I think that teachers are moving up the list, which I'm really excited about for vaccination. I think I've heard 1B after kind of like seniors and frontline workers, et cetera. But honestly, I don't know. I don't think that we've heard anything from the state yet about like what what expectations are going to be in terms of vaccination.
But will the teachers be able to opt out?
I have no idea. I honestly, I'm not a lawyer, and
Right.
nor am I a doctor, so I don't know what that's going to look like, to be honest with you. So we're not there yet. I don't think in a planning stage yet as far as a district goes. Again, I haven't even heard language from the state yet. and I try to keep up to date with that as much as possible. So again, I think that that's probably something you'll hear from the news, not necessarily from us.
Okay, thank you.
I wish there was a better answer than that. A good question. Dan.
Thank you very much. Just to echo some of the concerns that Anna raised, I just wanted to get your perspective on how, and hopefully Schoology is, will be out of the days of Schoology soon enough, but just wanted to get the district's perspective on how Schoology is working, as well as whether there's been any consideration to further expanding the parent access to the actual schoolwork. I do get the notifications, but I find that to see any actual schoolwork, it's not accessible through the parent account. And that's an issue both for my 4th grader as well as my 6th grader.
Yeah, so again, I can only offer my perspective. I can't offer the district perspective. But in terms of Schoology, as far as a student management system, I think it is going well. I think our ability to have a way to communicate with students is good. I don't think that we are maximizing right now. Unfortunately, we didn't have the opportunity to, do a year of training first and do that kind of thing. Those are the types of things we are doing on Wednesdays. Right now is trying to expand our teachers' knowledge in terms of like what is available, what can be available. I think you hopefully people are starting to see some online testing quizzes, which give kids the option to retake or see a score right away or something like that. So there are definitely some more capabilities that many teachers do not know or have yet. In terms of a communication tool, I really like it. I'm not sure though, it's very nuanced. Like right now, there are just so many protections in education. So like you really can't open up the same access for parents and students, because then if parents can see other students' work or other students' grades, it's really, really complicated in terms of like the law aspect. And I think we're going slow so that hopefully we can go fast on that. Again, that's my perspective. But I think that there are things that are integrating well. Like I know that some people are still using like Microsoft Teams approach, something that kids might be a little more familiar with if they were here in previous years. I think that our technology rollout, the ability for all children to have technology has gone well, but know that we continue to kind of like re-examine and redefine and continue to learn having to do with Schoology. Anything
Thank you.
I mean, I know you talked about the parent perspective, but anything that you're hoping for more of?
More of being able to actually see, obviously not other students' work, but my own students' work product, their writing, their homework, quizzes, that all seems to, I see here and there a very little bit of it, but it still seems to be behind the wall, and it's just a transparency thing for the reasons Anna already eloquently expressed.
Can I also add to that? Sorry. As far as like when they do take a test or a quiz, I mean, you can see their score, but trying to get into that quiz to help them through a question that they've gotten wrong is virtually impossible. I mean, you have to, and I can't always be there when the teacher's walking them through that specific question, because I also have another child, or just life. And so it's very difficult. Like there's no like way for him to email me his test so I can see what he's struggling with. There's no way for me to see his report or his story, because I can't I of course can't log in because all the other kids' work is on there. So there's no way to see any actual work. All of their work for math is done in a math notebook in OneNote that honestly, it's just so confusing to look at. It's like 5 million pages long across the page and down to see all the work. So, and they're doing it on whiteboards and with Apple pencils, which is amazing. I'm glad they're able to do it all, but it's very difficult to access as a parent to try to help out. Like we want to be able to, you know, especially for children that are at home learning, there's no way to intervene in the middle or to help or to even see the progress until you get a poor report. Like you don't get any kind of indication that, you know, something's wrong until it's like too far gone. So I think that like some sort of access to that would be wonderful. Or just like an emailed copy of it if it's requested would be great.
Yeah, so just a couple of things. I did receive like a little chat thing before. For those of you who don't know or who are not accessing this, our teams, our 6th grade and 7th grade teams are available. You can request a team meeting at any time to talk about, you know, and in a meeting like that, you can likely see the teachers might be able to share their screen with you to see those kind of questions. So you can always request a team meeting through the team leader or the school counselor. So that's one piece. And the other thing I wanted to say is, something that I hadn't thought about, and just so I'd like to just ask you to consider this perspective just as parents. Our teachers right now, you know, I shared that little anecdote before. They feel like all they do is take attendance and call on kids who are like, you know, with a dark screen, who are not on. They said that, you know, normally speaking, for a teacher to check homework is a 60-second process. You walk up and down the aisles, you check kids, you can see who did it, who didn't do it. It's now like a 25-minute process. And so like all these things, all these little things that go in, the posting on Schoology, the responding, the setting up the Apple Pencil and that kind of thing, like that was training we've done throughout the year. All these things take our finite amount of like 40 minutes and they decrease all of that time. And again, it's not I'm not saying that that's an excuse. I'm just asking to change potentially your perspective, like step into class for a moment where attendance and homework checking used to take like the first 90 seconds of class. It's now taking the first 25 to probably 27 minutes on some days if there's an important homework assignment given. So I think we are all in agreement. We wish we were in school. And, you know, these are the types of things that are kind of like the fallout when things do change in a pandemic situation. So again, not excuses. I just wanted to share that different perspective. Paul.
Just a quick add-on to the homework checking. It's not about, you know, checking each child's homework every classroom. It's about to get the kid notified you didn't do your homework, and then so that they can really look back what is missing. I know that it's very short period of time in the classroom when the kids gather in the Zoom, but it's about you didn't do your homework. That's it. This is what the teacher would do at the class at school during normal times, right? This is just, you know, just make the process easier, but get the kids notified. You're late.
Thank you. Paul, go ahead.
Thanks. I would say that I'll get a little praise, actually. I think that you've opened up Schoology a little bit there, and like I can see more now, but the point of OneNote where, because it's not on the same system, that you can't see the ELA work. Like I can see that he got an 85, which I'm like, ELA or 85, that's great. I'd love to know what the hell he wrote. You know, so if they can some way to open that up so that you have access to what they've written, I think is actually the link that's missing. But in terms of some of the other stuff, I can see most everything else in terms of some of the stuff that like the science stuff and stuff. But that was one thing I was like, I'd love to be able to see that, but because it's not written in Schoology and you have to transfer that over, that's where the wall pops up, and that it is a little bit annoying. The only other question I had was, and I'm sure you will cover this more in the next meetings the rest of this week as people are moving up. I'm assuming that I know that they often stress that you should have a 90 and above to move forward into the accelerated math or science. I'm assuming that this year there will be more of a open-ended division, like ability to do that, since it's a weird year and I'm like, hey, an 85, that's almost a 90 in the current situation. You know what I mean? Like, to me, I'm like, the attendance stuff, I'm like, I don't care if your accent. I kind of I mean, I know you're there. I know you're learning. If the computer doesn't say it to me, but I'm like, you know, I mean, every household hands it their own way. But my question is, what's the school's take on how it'll be looked at?
Yeah, so we are going to, as we do each year, we're going to make the recommendation process. So you'll see that on the upcoming interim report, kind of that initial recommendation. The final recommendation will be at the end of the trimester 2. But know that our process exists like it does every year, where there is a waiver for parents to, say like, my kid's been working really hard and I would like them to be in that advanced class anyway. So there's 2 parts of the process, and I'm proud that as a school and as a district, somebody asked a district question before, we do allow parent voice in that. There have been, I think the other 2 districts that I've worked in have not allowed parent voice. They say it's only the professionals here. So I think we're fortunate to be in a place where, you do know your child. There are people that we recommend advance and they say, you know what, not for my child. And the other way exists as well. So that will continue to exist this coming year, whether your child is going into 7th grade for math, 8th grade for science, or in 9th grade in the high school. The high school has a waiver process as well.
May I ask a question, please? Just in relation to, as you alluded to, that things are taking more time, so there's probably less time for teaching in the class, and they're also down on Wednesdays. What is the projected plan for completing? Ordinarily what's finished in 6th grade may not be completed this year. Do they then start and complete that in 7th grade, or when are they projecting that the kids will catch up, or do they just lose what they haven't been able to cover this year, or what's the plan?
Yeah, so I think that is a question probably that will be handled by our nation's next Department of Education person, because we are all in the exact same situation. So what we are doing this year is we're asking people to say, like, what are the standards that you have to cover this year? Because there may not be that time to catch up. So like, what are those building blocks for future years? And again, I think it's a conversation that's happening in every district, in every country across the world right now. Like, what are those standards? So there isn't like I can't like share with you a set plan, but we are asking our teachers that as a department and as a grade level, decide amongst yourselves, like, what are those building blocks for the next level? We're having those conversations, like 6th grade with 7th grade, 7th grade with 8th grade, et cetera, and preparing our 9th grade counterparts for the same thing. So it won't be a surprise, and people can plan for where those holes might be from a year to year. But it's something we started talking about last like March and April, what's going to happen. And I think that this will be there will be a bubble that comes up and through of students those pandemic years. I will tell you the colleges have started to look at it. So like that kind of stuff is matriculating all the way down from college. College is considering, lack of GPA, that kind of thing, saying it can be pass fail. Colleges themselves giving passes and fails for courses, given that it's a pandemic. So one of the things that we haven't talked about, and if you just let me take a little bird walk here for a moment, and then Tanya will come to you. One of the things we haven't really talked about, and what I was, prepared if there weren't any questions today, was talking about students' mental health. I think that it is very important for us to continue to consider the fact that, yes, our children are in a high functioning, high stress district. And our kind of like goal as a school this year is to make sure that we're not ruining the next however many years of children's education. So some of the conversations that we are having are something as simple as like, take a step back from your curriculum this year, check in with your students, learn to know who your students are, et cetera, et cetera. So it's tough, I think, to do both of those, right? So you can't have like the high expectations and think about what we're missing and also be saying like, we are worried about children, but we have to be worried about children. You know, again, we've talked about, I've come back to adolescence a couple of times today. And like, this is the time that kids need to connect with their teachers. They need to connect with their parents. They need to connect with their parents' friends and other friends as they kind of like, you know, make some choices about their future. And so I think all of us need to kind of like step back every once in a while and say, how is my child? How are they doing? And I know that some of the things that come up today are a reaction to my child's not doing well, or I don't know how to support my child because I'm stressed and they're stressed based on kind of like our current environment. And I will tell you, I hopefully you've heard today that you're not alone in some of those stresses, and we will continue to make all the adjustments that we possibly can to make sure that it continues to be a good year for students. I wish I could say great, and if it's great, that's awesome. But we do want to make sure that it does continue to be a good year for as many students as it possibly can be. So Tanya.
Sorry. Yeah, hi, good morning. Just a quick question. Is there an opportunity to meet with the teachers far as in 8th grade? So the advanced math and earth science teacher individually? Because I know, sometimes she'll email the teacher, doesn't get a response. And I emailed the teacher once and got a kind of a curt response saying your kid should be emailing me. So I kind of just, and I've met with the team leaders in 6th grade just to kind of see how she was doing. I have no particular major worries or concerns. She's doing fine, but I would like a little bit of direct feedback.
Yeah, so I think that the way in 8th grade, it's probably through our school counselor, so Ms. McSweeney. I would just start with her and just say, I'd love to set up a time to talk to whatever the teacher's name is.
Okay.
Can we find a time to contact? We do have a little bit of time in the morning. The hard part about our adjustment this year is we had a little longer time in the morning last year with home base. That doesn't exist this year because we wanted to build in that passing time to make sure students weren't like right on top of each other or on the hallways at the same time. So we sacrificed that home base time, and that was our time to meet with our 8th grade families last year. So like once the day started, there was that like 20 minutes to meet, and it doesn't exist this year. So we do have to be a little more inventive with that time. So just contact Ms. McSweeney, and there could be time at the end of the day. The bell rings at 2:38. The teacher day ends at 2:50. It sounds like you're just looking for about a 10-minute check-in. So that might be the right amount of time.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. All right, so let's go to Nora. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. I am actually adding on to what Tanya was saying and following up. Last time we had one of these coffees, I was asking if it would be possible for teachers to have more than just that one session on Wednesdays, so that students don't just have to choose, in that for that 40-minute period. And just to follow up, our experience has been really good since then. I have a 6th grader and 8th grader, and I've kind of dropped in, just sort of crashed for a minute my kids' sessions and talked to the teachers, and they've said that they're really flexible and they are willing to meet on other afternoons or just to work with around whatever the schedule. So, and especially with my 8th grader and similar, Tanya, like earth science and math, and there's a lot of, places where there's just a lot of material covered, and at least in our house, a little bit of stress around it now, that the teachers have been really helpful and have given time. So,
awesome.
and
Thank
English.
you.
Yeah.
Good.
So and with the 8th grader, I've been pushing him to contact the teachers directly. So I haven't actually requested a meeting, but yeah, they've been generous with their time.
That's great. Thank you. Again, I'm hoping that you'll see even more with the evolution of Wednesdays, but I'm glad to hear that, people are, again, it was I think a struggle for everybody at the beginning of this year, and trying to find out like that finite amount of time of trying to connect with colleagues and make sure that the curriculum is good and make sure you're checking with students and providing extra help and all that kind of stuff. And hopefully people are, into a kind of expectation. I will tell you, I don't know if you guys all feel the same way, and then we'll go to Charlie, then Lee, and then Cheryl. I don't know if any of us expected to be here in January. I don't know if any of us expect to be here in October, then November, then December. And the fact that we're still here is kind of I think it's a good reminder that I think we will continue to be here as long as we possibly can, as long as we have the staff that we need to either get students here or, supervise students once they're here. So anyway, all right. Thank you for that feedback, Nora. Charlie.
Hi, it's actually Kari Wagner. I'm on my child's Zoom. I have a question about like the upcoming year. I guess it might be too late, but next year, what's the focus on getting the kids back to school full time? Or is it more of an effort to really drill down and work hard on this hybrid system? Because I sense that there's a bunch of families that chose to go to school and then decided not to. And I feel like there's a lot of kids that want to go to school full time, but can't because there's families kind of not taking that option.
So when you say next year, you mean like 2021 or currently like 2021?
I was kind of hoping that there would be maybe a survey going out to find out if families that are taking the option to stay home are going to continue to do that, and maybe kids that want to come to school full time could take the place of like someone in my daughter's in cohort A. So
Yep.
if somebody in cohort B is just never coming to school, maybe she can come to school on Thursday and Fridays. And
Yeah.
then, so I was hoping that it would be like January through June, maybe that would be an option, or a survey, or just something to reach out to the families and say, hey, my kid's really thriving at home, and for whatever reasons we're doing that. But there's some kids that are not thriving at home as much. My daughter seems to be doing okay both ways, but would really love to be in school full time. And obviously it's hard to say, sorry, you can't go to school, but there's all these empty chairs there, and she's staring at this empty classroom thinking, well, I could sit in one of those. So I'm just curious about your thoughts this year, if there'd be a survey or something of who wants to stay home full time. And then also next year, where's the focus? Is it getting the kids back in full time, or is it really drilling down and making this hybrid system the best it can be? Because that's two hugely different things in my opinion. And I just want to know where the district's focus is.
Yeah, so again, I don't speak from a district perspective,
Right,
unless
I
we
know,
have
yeah.
that conversation. So just as a school, I did
Right.
talk about this a little bit earlier, but we are doing our best to maximize the number of students in the building. We have invited now, and I know somebody asked me about this earlier, but I believe we've invited all of our students with special needs, identified special needs back at this time. And that has put us over class size max in some of those positions. So if everybody that is in the cohort does come to school, we'll be over, and that creates an entirely new logistical issue for us. We do want our kids here every day. And so that continues to be our push.
Right.
And at the same time, like I know that the district continues to put out surveys to families asking for like the next couple of months, like a guarantee for the next couple of months. So, it's hard to say like, you've given us information and then was the information you gave us true? You know what I mean? Like we can't.
I don't think that's a hard question, to be honest with you, to hold people to, if you say, hey, I'm going to send my kid to school, and then they say, no, they're not, there should be I feel like there should be some questioning to that, and maybe giving kids that are wanting to be there full time an opportunity. I guess my last point on that is for next year, because sadly, it seems like we're going to be moving into that. Is there a way to have a survey that also contains a portion of saying how much do you want your kid to go to school full time? Because I think that there's some people that wanted them to be in and then chose the other option. And I speak for my daughter and a few friends that just say, I've showed up to school, there's like 4 kids here, and then in cohort B, everyone's online. So it's basically like we're teaching to a million computers, when some of those kids really could take the place of those computers. And it just seems unfair to kids that want to be back full time that can't.
So I don't think we know what next year brings, to be honest with you, just in terms of
Sure.
like vaccinations. And
of course, yeah.
Right now we're at a 16-year-old or 18-year-old threshold, which does not impact the middle school at all, just in terms of like the minimum age requirement for vaccines. So I don't know where we'll be for next year, to be honest with you. I think we continue to improve our hybrid plan right now, but I think that there may be more complications to the way that you're looking at it, then, you know, with 700 students in and out of the building and people saying they're going to come and then not coming, it's, you know, that would be a full-time job for somebody to continue to do all that while doing all the other things in the building. So I think it's a very complicated thing. Just please ask your, you know, your friends, et cetera, to answer the survey honestly so that we can make plans accordingly, because when that goes out, that's the information that we use.
Right, absolutely.
I wish I could say something. I wish I could say something else.
Yeah, no, I understand. Thank you very much.
All right, Lee.
Hi, yeah, Nora pretty much asked my question. It was really about extra help. I just want to, you said Wednesdays are going to shift a little bit. Wanted to make sure that the kids don't have to choose. Like if they need help in one subject, that's the only hour that they're given. And is there?
Yeah, that's part of the concern moving forward is we do want to make sure, like last year when we put out the schedule for the spring, we did our best to say, like, you have to choose between these two classes. We don't want to run a full like a 10-minute schedule, just because we feel like by the time kids that have internet problems log in, et cetera, like that 10 minutes is going to be gone when they're popping from class to class to class. So we do want to provide some options for students, but we're still talking about 9 classes within a certain time frame of the day, or potentially 10 classes if you're looking at, you know, days 1 and 3 versus days 2 and 4. So it still becomes a logistical issue. We're doing our best. There likely will still have to be decisions made at some point, like, am I going to go to ELA or social studies? Am I going to go to the math or science? Am I going to go, you know what I mean? So we have broken out, just in like our initial plan, we've broken out kind of like special ed time during a certain part of the day so that students don't have to choose between special ed resources and like an academic class.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, we've also broken out like our world language, but then you run into like team or no team on 6th grade or 7th grade. So those are the types of things that we're trying to figure out right now and have a good plan so that when we make the adjustment to the new kind of like evolution of Wednesdays, that we're ready to go. But it's not going to be clean. I wish it was going to be like,
it's just hard because like my son's in 6th grade, both, you know, teachers are asking him to attend extra help, and then it looks bad that he's not going, but he's actually in the other class, so they don't know, you know.
Yeah, I think if anything, what I would say is for 6th grade, just say, you know, hey, maybe email both teachers and say, hey, I'll come to this from 12 or 2:50 to 3:10, and the other one from 3:10 to 3:30 or whatever it's going to be, and just let both teachers know kind of where they'll be, or copy the guidance counselor or something like that. I think, you know, anytime you can share more information, it definitely helps. Whether that comes from you or you encourage your child to do it, I think either would be good.
Got it. One last thing. So in regards to the grades, obviously 6th grade, it's the first time getting grades, and they were not what we, you know, 5th grade was doing great. And we thought he was, you know, 6th grade, we get these grades, we're like, whoa. Are they all gonna, if they're attending class, are they all gonna move on to 7th grade? I mean, like.
Yes, with probably no exceptions, right? So our job again is to make sure that we are connecting with our students, we're connecting with our families, and if there is a concern, you know, that we do have an RTI process here as a building, and we've got meetings coming up kind of over the next week or two to discuss who are the students that we see who are struggling. And one of the conversations that I had with every team after grades came out is like, tell me about these students who are struggling, or the assistant principals have done the same thing. So, you know, that's part of our job, is to make sure that our students do move forward successfully.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Alexandru, let's see, you're on there, you're just on mute.
Yeah, hi, I'm Andre. Alex is that I'm using. Good morning, everyone. A quick question. I don't mean to beat up that horse, but going back to homework. So I personally think Schoology does a good job letting us know when he doesn't do the homework. So we get those love emails every day, which is great. And I think the teachers also, you know, email us, the co-op teachers email us when homework doesn't get done, which I also think is great. But again, like everyone stated, it's a total lack of transparency when it comes to the student. So assuming that he turns in his homework, which in my son's case, it's like 2.5 minute process. Since I tell him the homework isn't done, oh yes, it's done. Okay, great, it's done. But how do I know it's done correctly?
Yeah.
Are there checks and balances? Is the teacher gonna check only if the homework was submitted or the quality of the homework? This is where I'm a little confused.
Yeah, and I think each teacher handles that a little bit differently, right? So like in a math class, it may be very easy to see if a student did it. Like I will tell you as a former math teacher, I wanted to make sure that my students were attempting the homework every night. And if they attempted and showed good effort, like I'd give them 100 on completion or something like that. There are some that I know teachers collect and grade. There are some that, the homework is really a continuation of what was done in class and then the beginning of the next class. So some teachers do like what are your questions with homework? Let's start there for the next class. So each teacher does that a little bit differently. You really have to contact the teacher that you're talking about and just say like, what is your homework practice? That kind of thing to know if the 2.5 minutes that I think you said that he's spending on homework is good or not. Okay. Nora and then Melissa.
Thanks. This is just a quick follow-up and onto what Lee was asking too. When I think about it, I think that the times that have been easiest meeting with teachers for my kids has been when they have been, sadly, I think sometimes they've been in quarantine or they've been at home for some reason, but I think it's been easier. So I get it's legit this is going back to, the teachers meeting with the kids. I don't know if does it have to be on a Wednesday? Is there any way to add the times and maybe like, I assume most teachers, are not lingering at school way after if there are any after school activities, but even just like, I don't know, 4:30 to 5:30 or later in the day when people are all doing it from home, because the remote help, I can't say anything about the in-person and my kids have mostly been home. That it's just been so much smoother and easy and, easier. Like, yeah, that's it.
So just to answer your question as to why it was Wednesdays, we decided on Wednesdays for extra help for everybody, just so that all students have access to it. So on a day when students are not in the building, there are contractual reasons as to, certain like contractual times, that kind of thing, shapes some of these answers. But the reason we chose Wednesdays is because it could be right after the school day that we could start because no kids would be on the bus and missing out and that kind of thing. So that's why Wednesdays. But again, we know that it's like 40 minutes or whatever, 35 minutes and potentially 9 classes during that time. We hope that students won't all need extra help for every class period, but the ones that they do, that's part of the prioritization that I think is important to kind of have the discussion, whether teacher to student or parent to student, like what's the one you need the most help with? That's where we want to make sure that we go for extra help today. All right, Melissa, we'll come back to you.
So I was wondering about when, we're talking about next year and, the kids' well-being and the fact that they might not be able to cover all of the information that they need to for this year's curriculum. And I mean, are there like out of the box thinking ideas of like having like adding another school year, like a transitional year for all these kids that went through this pandemic, or repeating a school year, or breaking up the school year into a full-time, like some kids that want to go back full-time and having specific teachers that do full remote and allow who wants to repeat a year, go through and be in 6th grade again or be in 2nd grade again, so that you can catch up, because their well-being right now is focused on like them not being around their friends and stuff. But as they get older, they're going to realize that, oh no, I don't have all of the information that I need to be in this class in college. And how, like, I get that like the short-term goals are one thing, but there's a lot of long-term ramifications to the fact that they're not getting what they need. And they might not love repeating a year, but I think based off of everything that I've heard and everybody that's talking about it, no one's happy with where their kids are at. The teachers aren't happy with how they're able to teach. It's a learning year to figure out how to do it. I feel like they'll be able to come up to speed. And once they are up to speed, that might be the optimal time to get the kids learning and on this platform and understanding it all. This is almost like a, you know, they're like test dummies this year, you know, so it's kind of what are some of the options being looked at? Or is it just like, let's push them along and they'll slowly catch up at some point, or they might not? I mean, what are the, I guess, like, where do you go to find that information, or who do you talk to find that information? I know you're not the district, but are these things being discussed?
So again, you know, we are trying to manage this year as of right now, and just trying to make decisions that are best for our students and the long-term, you know, trajectory of students. It sounds like you have a Board of Education running for a Board of Education platform with some of the questions that you're asking. You know, honestly, like there are definitely questions that are out there that we do have to begin to consider. And we are starting that again as kind of like a local math department, right? Like a 6-8 math department. So like what can we expect next year? And we've had those conversations and the departments are meeting with that. But just in terms of like a larger group, you know, again, I think there's an acceptance in the education community that this will be a bubble of students, that comes up and through. We do have our curriculum, well-defined state regulated curriculum that will exist in future years. But there is, I can't imagine you'd be able to convince any kindergarten parents that we do want to do like a repeat year, you know, incoming kindergarten parents that would have nowhere to go for next year. But I think that, you know, it's definitely something that we are considering, like, what are those gaps that our kids will have as they go from year to year? And that gap for, I think the district has decided that for our K1 and 2 students, we don't want that gap to exist, right? So the district has decided that students should be in full time. And we've made other adjustments in the entire district in order to allow that to happen. So taking a cafeteria and breaking it into 2 teaching spaces, like those, you know, putting like art on a card or whatever it would be at an elementary school. So those are some of the things that, you know, we have decided as a district to make that commitment to, inviting our students with special needs back because, you know, they have an identified need. So like, those are some of the conversations that we're having, but just in terms of like looking at the exact curriculum and saying like, strike this, not necessarily, nor for future plans. Any other reactions to that or anything? Okay. All right, Antoinette.
Yeah, I just want to make 2 quick comments. So one on Schoology, whether I'm doing the wrong thing or not, I just log into my son's account. And that gives me a lot more information than if I'm on my account. So for anyone who wants to get more information, but I agree with Paul, even when you have all that information, it's very hard to see the quality of work that the children submit because you don't see, especially with tests, they're all online. It's very hard to see where they've gone wrong and how to support them in you know, specifically learning more about that particular piece because you don't see where their errors were. And I understand the teachers are working so hard and they're really busy. So I've tried to stay away from, you know, asking them for more information. I've tried not to bother them. But if there is a way for the system, for technology to support us in getting us more information rather than asking the teachers, that would be really helpful.
Okay.
And my second thing is about, you know, supporting the mental health with the students, along with, you know, the attendance stress and the grades. It is even more difficult for our kids. And I know, for example, with my son, he's a great athlete and he does soccer and he now is doing skateboarding, but he doesn't want to watch those videos in PE. And I'm having a hard time encouraging him to do it. And he's getting a PE grade that doesn't really reflect his activities. And I'm wondering, has there been consideration on doing pass or fail for some of these subjects where our students don't have to feel the pressure of having a grade?
Yeah, I think we made I'll answer that second part. we made a commitment that we were going back to grading for this year. We have had to make some exceptions for certain students. I don't, but just as a district and as a school, we did commit to going back toward grading, knowing that it would be complicated, knowing that there may be, situations, and we're kind of like problem solving those one by one throughout the course of the year. I think it's very difficult in a normal year. There are students that are motivated by grades and doing well by grades, and there are families that are motivated by that. And there are students and families that are not motivated as much by grades as well. So it's always, I think, a tricky situation. We're actually starting to talk in some departments about, I'm trying to think of exactly the name of it. I had the book around, but standard-based grading. For like our technology classrooms, like student has met the standard or exceeded the standard and moved up to the next standard, and that might be better for some subjects to say that like student has met or exceeded or not met yet, as opposed to a grade. So those are some of the conversations that are happening behind the scenes here in certain departments. But again, I would continue to encourage anybody to reach out to a teacher if you do have a specific concern, especially if you see a low test or quiz grade, and just say like, where can I encourage my child to spend a little more time studying? I think that's a great question to have. And I will ask the question just about, can parents have access? I don't know the permission levels of Schoology that well. Can parents have access to like just their kids, like a horizontal move? But so I'll ask the question. I don't know if it's a capability or not, because I know that technically you probably shouldn't be going on the child screen, but because then you can see other students' work.
Thank you.
But there's no education police, I don't think, that are gonna find you on that one. All right. Looks like most hands have gone down, or people have kind of turned off their videos. So I'll take that as some sort of clue that we're kind of winding down. Again, thank you. Some of you have been on here for an hour and a half, so that's awesome. I really appreciate your time. You can hear through the questions that all of you have your own child's best interest at heart with what you're asking, and a lot of people are asking questions that can improve what we are doing as a school or what we're doing as a district. So, all of this feedback is helpful and will be kind of like redirected toward our administrative group here, if we can solve it here, to a technology group, to a superintendent, assistant superintendent, if those are decisions they need to make. So this is extremely valuable, and I really appreciate your time. It's not always easy to hear that, we're not doing kind of like what, or we might not be living up to the expectations that you have for us, but it's good that you have high expectations for us. And it's good that you're taking the time to let us know that either we're not meeting those or there's something to reconsider in the way. So again, thank you for spending the time doing that. And, I see any feedback as good feedback. So thank you very much to those of you who spent the time in either direction this morning. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate all the time you spend and everything that you and the staff do every day. It's amazing. And yes, thank you to all the parents for coming in and chatting today and feeling comfortable talking about everything you're experiencing. It's great. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you at the various other things that are going on this week, the 6th grade conversations and 7th and 8th. And I hope everyone has a great week.
You got it. Those reminders will be coming out from us later on this evening for our 6th grade and 7th grade families. Our 8th grade families, you'll start to receive more and more communication from the high school.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.